Venture's Haven drifted through the deep black like a drunk looking for a fight. Captain Jack's Vortex's ship was no paradise, unless you counted paradise as a place where hope went to die and dreams got mugged in a dark alley. The place had charm, though, if rust and questionable plumbing were your thing. Ryder Quill, our reluctant hero, or just another schmuck trying not to get spaced, was elbows deep in the ship's guts. He muttered a string of colorful curses that would have made a sailor blush. "Why do I always get the jobs that smell like a rancid rat's arse?" he grumbled, yanking a fried circuit board out of the console. "Oh right, because I'm the idiot who knows how these damn things work." Up above, the intercom crackled to life with the static-filled voice of Captain Jack's Vortex, the kind of guy who made you want to check your wallet after shaking his hand. "Ryder, my favorite grease monkey, you found that little hiccup yet? The way the lights are flickering, you'd think we were having a rave." "Yeah, Cap." "I'm on it," Ryder replied, rolling his eyes. "But if this ship were any more of a death trap, it'd be charging rent." "Keep your sarcasm in check, Quill. The last guy who talked back to me ended up as space dust," Jax shot back with a grin you could hear. Ryder snorted, pushing back his mop of unruly hair. "I thought that was just your morning breath, Captain." He yanked out another wire, sparks flying like angry fireflies. "These circuits are older than you, Cap, and that's saying something." Jax's laughter crackled through the intercom. "You're too kind. Just fix it, Ryder. I'd hate to have to find a new engineer. Especially one who can put up with my charming personality." "Yeah, well, the feeling's mutual," Ryder muttered, adjusting his headlamp. A flicker of motion caught his eye and he frowned. "What the hell?" He reached into the compartment, pulling out a small, gleaming device. It didn't belong, it was too alien. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." Jax's voice buzzed back. "What now? Found something?" "And it ain't part of the ship," Ryder replied, turning the device over in his hands. It hummed with a strange energy, like it was whispering secrets in a language he couldn't understand. "Looks like some alien whatchamacallit." There was a pause on the line, longer than usual. "You sure about that?" "No, Cap. I just thought I'd make up some random alien conspiracy to spice up my day," Ryder deadpanned, examining the gadget. "It's definitely screwing with the systems." "Bring it to me." "Now," Jax said, all humor gone from his voice. Ryder stuffed the device into his jacket, feeling its pulse against his chest like a tiny, angry heartbeat. He clambered out of the maintenance hatch, ignoring the way the ship groaned and creaked like an old man with a bad back. The corridors of Venture's Haven were a maze of dim lights and shadows, the kind that made you check over your shoulder more often than not. Ryder passed a group of crew members playing cards on overturned crates, their laughter echoing like the ghosts of happiness. "Hey Quill, want in on this hand?" one of them called, waving a deck of well-worn cards. "Not today, thanks. Got a date with Destiny," Ryder replied. "And by Destiny I mean Captain Vortex." "Watch your back, mate," the crewman said, flashing a grin filled with more gaps than teeth. "He's in one of those moods." "Aren't we all?" Ryder muttered, continuing down the corridor. He reached the bridge, where Jax was seated in the captain's chair like a king on a cardboard throne. The room was filled with the familiar smell of space coffee and bad decisions. "All right, show me," Jax said, eyes fixed on Ryder. Ryder tossed the device onto the console. It clattered to a stop, its alien hum filling the silence. Jax leaned forward, squinting at it like it was a particularly nasty bug. "That's the thing screwing with my ship?" Jax asked, reaching to touch it. "I'd be careful if I were you," Ryder warned. "It's got more mood swings than a hormonal teenager." Jax snorted, withdrawing his hand. "Hell, I don't need more trouble than I already have." "Any guesses what it does?" "Other than trying to give me a nervous breakdown, not a clue," Ryder replied. "But if it's linked to the sabotage, we might have bigger problems." "Sabotage," Jax echoed, the word hanging in the air like a bad smell. "That explains the accidents we've been having," Ryder nodded. "Someone's playing a dangerous game and we're the pieces." Jax sat back, rubbing his stubbled chin. "Well, shit. Guess I owe you more than a bottle of synth whiskey for this." Nah, just keep the ship from blowing up while I'm still on it, Ryder said with a grin. I've got a few plans for the future that don't involve being vaporized. I'll see what I can do, Jax replied, though his tone suggested that was about as likely as finding a clean bathroom on board. Keep digging, Quill. If there's more of these things, I want them off my ship. Ryder gave a lazy salute. Aye aye, Captain, one alien mystery coming up. As he turned to leave, the device let out a soft beep, its alien hum growing louder. Ryder paused, looking back. Jax, did it just? The device suddenly emitted a burst of light, the room flooding with a blinding, unnatural glow. Ryder raised a hand to shield his eyes, heart pounding in his chest. Well, that can't be good. What the hell is it doing? Jax shouted, stumbling back. If I knew that, I'd be a damn genius, Ryder snapped, blinking spots from his vision. But I'd wager it's not saying hello. The light faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the bridge in an eerie, tense silence. Ryder and Jax exchanged a look, both knowing that whatever this was, it had just escalated their problems by several orders of magnitude. Guess we've got our work cut out for us, Jax said, his usual bravado tempered by genuine concern. Good to know I won't be bored, Ryder replied, slipping the device back into his jacket. I'll start by tearing apart every circuit on this rust bucket until we find more of these gizmos, Jax nodded. And I'll keep an eye on the crew, see if any of them are acting stranger than usual, Ryder chuckled. Stranger than usual on this ship, good luck with that. Point taken, Jax said with a sigh. But if anyone can sort this mess out, it's you. Flattery will get you everywhere, Cap, Ryder said, heading for the door. Just try not to accidentally space me while I'm at it, yeah. No promises, Jax called after him, though his voice held a note of grudging respect. Ryder made his way back through the ship's winding corridors, the weight of the device heavy in his pocket. It was a reminder that out here in the cold, unforgiving expanse of space, nothing was ever simple. And if there was one thing Ryder knew for sure, it was that in the great cosmic joke, humanity was often the punchline. As he passed a viewport, he spared a glance outside, the stars twinkling in the dark void like a million indifferent eyes. Well, here we go, he muttered to himself, a wry smile tugging at his lips. Just another day in paradise. Ryder Quill, reluctant hero and all-around cynic, wandered through the dim corridors of the Venture's haven, the alien device humming ominously in his pocket. The ship groaned around him, its complaints as vocal as a disgruntled pensioner. Ryder couldn't shake the feeling that the device was more trouble than it was worth. Then again, what wasn't on this rust bucket? He made his way to Lyra Sign's quarters, or, as she liked to call it, her den of iniquity. Lyra was the ship's resident hacker, a woman with more secrets than a confessional booth on a busy Sunday. Her door was plastered with a multitude of warning signs, most of which could give you a complex just by reading them. Enter at your own risk, Ryder muttered, pushing the door open. He was greeted by a haze of smoke and the sight of Lyra hunched over her console, her fingers dancing across the keys like a pianist on a caffeine high. Lyra looked up, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Ryder, my favorite pessimist, what brings you to my humble abode? Looking for a new identity? Or just a way off this ship? Tempting, but neither, Ryder replied, pulling the alien gadget from his pocket and waving it like an unwanted invitation. I found this little gem screwing with the ship systems. Thought you might want to take a look before Jax decides it's a new age paperweight. Lyra's eyebrows shot up, and she gestured for him to hand it over. Well, what do we have here? Let's see if this thing's more than just a pretty face. Ryder handed it over, watching as Lyra connected the device to her console with the ease of a magician performing a card trick. She hummed thoughtfully as data scrolled across her screen, her expression shifting from curiosity to surprise, and finally a kind of bemused horror. Okay, Ryder, you brought me a real treat here, she said, tapping a few keys. This thing's a quantum espionage tool. It's designed to intercept and manipulate communications. And not just your average let's listen in on the neighbor's kind. I'm talking major league spying, like make you disappear off the galactic map level. Ryder let out a low whistle. So we're talking serious business. Serious enough that if Jax knew the full story, he'd probably toss this thing into the nearest star, Lyra replied, her fingers still flying over the keyboard. Looks like this was planted by a rival alien faction, and before you ask, I don't know which one. Yet. Figures, Ryder said, folding his arms. So what are the chances this little gizmo is the reason for all the accidents we've been having? Pretty damn high, Lyra said. Whoever planted this thing wanted us off the radar, or into it at high speed. Ryder rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the weight of the situation settling in like an unwelcome guest. Great. So what's the plan? Smash it to bits and hope it doesn't explode in our faces. Lyra leaned back in her chair, her gaze thoughtful. We could try, but there's a better option. I can work on decrypting its data, find out who's behind this and what exactly they are after. But it's gonna take time, and I'll need a way to keep this under wraps from Captain Space Dust Vortex. Ryder scratched his chin. I'll handle Jax. You just focus on getting us some answers, and if you need anything, I'll holler, Lyra cut in, flashing a grin. Don't worry, Ryder, we'll get to the bottom of this. Just try not to get spaced before I do. Ryder chuckled, though his heart wasn't quite in it. I'll do my best. Stay safe, Lyra. Always, she replied, already engrossed in her work. Leaving Lyra to her digital wizardry, Ryder made his way back to the bridge, his mind a whirl of thoughts darker than the void outside. He knew Jax wouldn't be happy with the news, but then again, Jax had never met an unhappy ending he couldn't double down on. As Ryder approached the bridge, he heard Captain Jax's voice drifting down the corridor, accompanied by the sounds of disagreement, though on Venture's Haven, that was as common as rebreathers in space. Ryder paused at the threshold, listening. I'm telling you, we need to make this raid, Jax was saying, his voice carrying the weight of a man trying to convince a brick wall to dance. It's risky, sure, but the payoff could set us up for months, or it could get us all killed, a crew member protested. You know what happens when you piss off the wrong faction. Ryder stepped inside, the bridge a chaos of determined faces and Jax's unwavering grin. And here I thought we'd all decided to live forever, Ryder quipped, drawing everyone's attention. What's all the fuss about? Jax turned to him, arms crossed. Ryder, glad you could join us. Just discussing a little opportunity. Seems there's a convoy of corporate bastards moving through Sector 9. They're carrying, well, let's just say valuables, and I intend to relieve them of their burden. Ryder raised an eyebrow. You do realize that corporate bastards have bigger guns and less patience than a tax auditor on a bad day, right? Jax waved a hand dismissively. Details, details. Besides, with your talent for fixing things, I'm sure we could make any potential damage look like part of the plan. The crew chuckled nervously. Ryder sighed, knowing he was trapped between a rock and a hard vacuum. Well, before we go gallivanting off, there's something you need to know. He explained the situation with the alien device, watching as Jax's expression shifted from amusement to something sharper, more dangerous. Quantum espionage, huh? Jax said, scratching his chin. And you think this is related to our recent string of bad luck? More than likely, Ryder replied. Lyra's working on cracking it, but we need to tread carefully. Whoever planted this isn't playing games. Jax leaned back in his chair, mulling over the information. All right, here's the deal. We go ahead with the raid. Seriously, Ryder interjected, disbelief tinging his voice. Jax held up a hand. Hear me out. We go ahead, but we do it smart. We keep our eyes open, watch for anything out of the ordinary. And if whoever's behind this is planning something, maybe we can draw them out. Ryder rubbed his temples, feeling a headache brewing. So, your plan is to kick the hornet's nest and hope we can outrun the swarm. More or less, Jax agreed with a grin. But if it works, we'll be a hell of a lot richer. And if it doesn't, Ryder asked, though he already knew the answer. Then we get to find out if there's life after death, Jax replied cheerfully. Look, Ryder, I know it's risky, but sometimes the best defense is a good offense, And besides, we could use the distraction. Ryder couldn't argue with that. The crew was on edge, tensions simmering just beneath the surface. Maybe this could unite them, give them something to focus on other than the fear of sabotage, or it could get them all killed. But then again, wasn't that the thrill of the whole grim adventure? "All right, fine," Ryder said, reluctantly conceding. "But if I end up as space debris, I'm haunting you." Jax laughed, clapping him on the shoulder. "Deal. Now let's get ready to make some history. Or at least a decent headline." As Ryder left the bridge, he couldn't help but feel a mix of dread and anticipation bubbling up inside him. There was something intoxicating about the razor's edge, where life teetered precariously between survival and an explosive end. He wandered back to the engineering bay, the ship's familiar creaks and groans greeting him like an old friend with questionable motives. The alien device buzzed softly in his pocket, a constant reminder of the unseen threat lurking just beyond the stars. Ryder found himself at his workstation, tools spread out like a surgeon's tray. He started tinkering with another fried circuit board, letting the mindless task drown out his spiraling thoughts. There was comfort in the repetitive motions, the way the world faded into the background when he was focused on fixing something broken. As he worked, he thought about the risks ahead, the unknown dangers waiting in the shadows. But he also thought about the crew, their laughter, their camaraderie, even their bickering. They were a family of sorts, held together by shared hardship and a mutual understanding that life out here was anything but easy. It was the kind of life Ryder had never imagined for himself, yet one he couldn't imagine living without. Maybe that was the real reason he stuck around, why he put up with Jax's plans and the constant danger. Because despite everything, this ship, this ragtag crew, was home. The intercom crackled to life, snapping him from his reverie. "All hands prepare for mission briefing in 15, Jax's voice announced, as casual as if he were inviting them to a backyard barbecue rather than a potentially suicidal raid. Ryder sighed, setting his tools aside. "Well, here we go," he muttered to himself, a wry smile tugging at his lips. Just another day in space. He headed for the briefing room, the weight of the alien device heavy in his pocket. Whatever lay ahead, Ryder knew one thing for sure. Life on Venture's Haven was never boring. As he walked through the ship's corridors, the familiar sights and sounds surrounded him, a testament to both the chaos and the comfort of his chosen life. And despite the danger, despite the uncertainty, he felt a strange sense of peace. After all, in the vast, uncaring universe, it was the little things that kept you going. The laughter of friends, the thrill of the unknown, and the knowledge that even in the darkest times, there was always the promise of another adventure just over the horizon. The briefing room of Venture's Haven was a space that had seen more bad ideas than a startup incubator in a recession. Ryder, leaning against the wall, listened as Captain Jax laid out the plan like a crooked salesman pitching a bridge to a fool. "So we swoop in, make some convincing noise, and peel off with a few crates of goodies before they know what hit him," Jax said, his grin as wide and trustworthy as a politician's promise. Simple, clean, and profitable, Ryder raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Simple and clean, huh? You sure we're not scrubbing toilets in the process?" Jax chuckled. "Oh, Ryder, always the optimist." "But that's why I like you." From the corner of the room, Lyra Sign's eyes flickered from her console, fingers dancing over keys like a concert pianist with a grudge. "I'll monitor their systems, make sure our little heist goes off without a hitch. Though considering our crew, I'm sure we'll invent a few new hitches along the way." Ryder smirked. "Love the confidence, Lyra. Really warms the heart." Jax clapped his hands, the sound echoing like a judge's gavel. "All right, you cynical bastards, let's make history. Or at least a nice, footnoted paragraph." As the crew dispersed, Ryder exchanged a glance with Lyra. "Keep an eye on that device. Last thing we need is more surprises." She nodded, her expression a mix of determination and something Ryder couldn't quite place, maybe a hint of excitement. "Don't worry. If anything goes sideways, you'll be the first to know." "Let's hope it's not the last thing I know," Ryder replied, the words dry enough to parch a desert. The crew assembled in the cockpit, their buzz of nervous energy palpable. The screen flickered to life, displaying their target, a lumbering convoy ship, big and slow, like a prize pig waiting for slaughter. Jax rubbed his hands together, practically salivating at the sight. "Time to bring home the bacon," he declared, and with a flick of switches, Venture's Haven surged forward. As they approached, the convoy grew larger on the screen, each passing second ratcheting up the tension like a poorly tuned guitar. Jax maneuvered the ship with practiced ease, his eyes alight with the thrill of the chase. "Here we go, folks," he announced. "Our window's tighter than a miser's wallet, so make it count." The crew sprang into action, each moving with a purpose that belied their typical disarray. Ryder's hands flew over his console, adjusting power levels and plotting escape routes. Lyra, meanwhile, was a whirlwind of keystrokes, her focus razor-sharp. Then, just as things seemed to be going according to plan, never a good sign, a series of red lights flashed across the panel. Alarms screamed, a cacophony of panic. "Ah, hell," Ryder muttered, as chaos unfolded. "What now?" Lyra's voice cut through the noise, sharp and urgent. "We've got company. And not the drop-in-for-tea kind." On the screen, a sleek alien ship materialized, its dark hull glinting ominously. It moved with the predatory grace of a shark in blooded waters, closing in on their position with alarming speed. "Looks like someone didn't RSVP," Ryder said, his tone dry as bone. Jax swore under his breath, fingers gripping the controls. "Get us out of here. Now." Ryder's fingers danced across his console, rerouting power to the engines, hoping to squeeze every last ounce of speed from the old bird. The Venture's Haven shuddered in protest but held together, barely. Meanwhile, the alien vessel opened fire, laser blasts slicing through the void like angry red wasps. The ship rocked with each hit, the deck vibrating beneath their feet. "Shields are holding," Lyra reported, though her voice held a note of tension. "For now, anyway." "Good, because I'd hate for this to be a short-lived disaster," Ryder quipped, sweat prickling on his brow. As the alien ship closed in, it became clear that their unwelcome guests weren't just here for a friendly chat. They wanted their device back, and they weren't taking no for an answer. Jax glanced at Ryder, eyes sharp. "We need options, and fast." Ryder racked his brain, thoughts racing. "If we can disable their systems even for a moment, it might give us enough time to jump. And how exactly do you propose we do that?" Lyra asked, skepticism coloring her words. He gestured toward the alien device, humming ominously in the corner. "We've got their toy. Maybe we can use it against them." Lyra shot him a look like he just suggested juggling live grenades. "You're insane." "Yeah," Ryder replied with a grim smile. "And you love it." With no time to lose, they set to work. Lyra and Ryder crouched over the device, its alien symbols glowing eerily. Ryder fiddled with the controls, trying to make sense of the incomprehensible runes. "Any ideas?" he asked, his voice tense. Lyra bit her lip. "If I can interface it with our systems, maybe I can send out a feedback pulse. But it's a long shot. Long shots are all we've got," Ryder replied, heart pounding like a war drum. As Lyra worked her magic, the alien ship drew closer, its weapons peppering them with fire. Ryder watched the distance close, every second a countdown to catastrophe. "Almost there," Lyra said, her voice tight with concentration. "Just a little more." Ryder held his breath, watching her fingers fly over the keys with frenetic energy. The ship shuddered with another hit, lights flickering, a stark reminder of how little time they had. "Done," Lyra exclaimed, a triumphant edge to her voice. "Sending the pulse now." A surge of power raced through the ship, the alien device glowing brighter than ever. Ryder crossed his fingers, sending a silent prayer to any deity listening. On the screen, the alien ship faltered, its weapons falling silent. A collective breath was held, hope mingling with disbelief. "Did it work?" Ryder asked, not daring to believe their luck. "For now," Lyra replied, her voice barely containing her relief. "But it won't last." "Then let's not waste it," Jax said, seizing the opportunity. He slammed the controls forward, propelling Venture's Haven away from their assailant. The engines roared in protest, but the ship surged ahead, stars streaking past in a blur. As they sped away, the alien vessel shrank into the distance, its systems slowly recovering. But by then they were long gone, a phantom in the night, leaving nothing but stardust and regrets in their wake. Silence fell over the cockpit, a silence punctuated by the ragged breaths of the crew. Ryder leaned back, heart racing, the tension slowly unwinding from his body. "Well, that was a good way to lose a few years off my life," he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Lyra chuckled, though the sound was tinged with exhaustion. "Tell me about it. Next time, let's just stick to the plan, huh? That wouldn't be any fun," Jax interjected, a grin spreading across his face. "Besides, we got what we came for." Ryder couldn't help but laugh, the sound bubbling up from deep within. Despite everything, despite the danger, the chaos, the sheer insanity of it all, there was a certain thrill in their victory. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, they could still find a way to come out on top. As the stars streaked by, Ryder allowed himself a moment of peace. They'd survived, yet again, against all odds. And while tomorrow might bring new challenges, new dangers, today they were still flying. And that was enough. "All right, folks, let's wrap it up," Jax said, leaning back in his chair. "We'll count our spoils and toast to another job well done." As the crew dispersed, Ryder lingered for a moment, watching the stars outside. In a universe filled with uncertainty, he realized one truth. No matter the odds, they'd always find a way to keep flying. He turned to leave, a small smile playing on his lips. "Just another day in the life," he murmured to himself, stepping into the corridor. Another day survived, another story to tell, and maybe, just maybe, another adventure waiting just around the corner. As Venture's Haven limped through space, a battered yet hopeful husk, Ryder and Lyra found themselves in the ship's belly, surrounded by the dull hum of machinery and the even louder hum of their own thoughts. The alien device lay between them, still glowing with a sinister allure, like a forgotten relic from a long-gone civilization that probably knew better than to meddle in affairs not their own. Ryder squinted at it, suspicion etched across his features. "You ever get the feeling this thing's more trouble than it's worth?" Lyra, crouched over her console, gave a non-committal grunt. "Trouble's just another day at the office in Nit. Yeah, but this trouble's got bells, whistles, and a flashing neon sign saying bad idea." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "You know, when I signed up for this gig, no one mentioned alien devices that could potentially screw with our heads." "Guess it's in the fine print," Ryder replied, the sarcasm practically dripping from his voice. Next to potential death and no dental, Jax chose this moment to stroll in, looking far too pleased with himself for someone whose last plan had nearly turned them into cosmic confetti. "What have we got here? Our little alien toy causing a fuss." "More than a fuss," Ryder said, kicking the device lightly. "This thing's got a mind of its own. And I mean that literally. Care to elaborate?" Lyra's fingers danced over her console, pulling up data that was as comforting as a shark in a swimming pool. "So, I've been analyzing this thing, trying to figure out why it was making that convoy ship so important. Turns out, it can disrupt human emotional responses." Jax's eyebrows shot up. "Disrupt how, exactly?" "Think of it as a mood swing in a box," Ryder explained. "It messes with your head, makes you feel things you shouldn't, like fear in the middle of a heist, or, being overly optimistic about our survival chances." Jax scratched his chin, a thoughtful glint in his eye. "And the aliens wanted it back because—" Lyra shrugged. "Best guess." "They're not big on humans having their emotional whammy machine. Maybe they figured it'd give us an edge, or maybe they just hate sharing." "Sounds like a hell of a party trick," Jax mused, leaning against the wall with a smirk. "Imagine the chaos at a diplomatic negotiation. Or at a wedding," Ryder added, grinning. "Make the groom feel like he's walking the plank." "But seriously," Lyra interjected, her tone shifting to something more somber, "if they can control how we feel, they can control how we act. That's a big problem when you're trying to outwit them during a heist. Jax crossed his arms, his smile fading. So what's the play? We can't exactly throw it into the nearest star and call it a day. We need to figure out how to counteract it, Ryder suggested. Or at least keep it from screwing us over at the worst possible time. Already working on it, Lyra said, her focus once again on the console. Just need a bit of time. Let's hope we've got enough left on the clock, Ryder muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. Because I don't fancy getting my brain scrambled like eggs. Jax clapped his hands, his usual bravado returning. All right then, let's buckle down, get this sorted, and show those aliens that humans don't back down. As he strode out, Ryder turned to Lyra, his expression a mix of admiration and exasperation. Ever notice how Jax talks like he's leading a pep rally? It's his superpower, she replied with a chuckle. Keeps us distracted from the fact we're usually one step away from disaster. Or a step into it, Ryder added, shaking his head. But hey, at least it's never boring. They worked in silence for a while, the air filled with the rhythmic tapping of keys and the quiet hum of electronics. Ryder found himself lost in thought, trying to piece together the puzzle of their situation. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about outsmarting a foe that seemed to anticipate their every move. A sudden thought struck him and he glanced at Lyra. What if we use the device against them? She paused, looking up with an arch of her eyebrow. Risky. If we mess it up, it could backfire. But if it works, it could give us the upper hand, Ryder argued. Imagine them scrambling to figure out what's real and what's not. Lyra considered it, a slow smile creeping across her face. You know, I like the way you think. I had a good teacher, Ryder replied, nodding towards the alien device. And by teacher, I mean constant source of headaches. Their exchange was interrupted by the intercom crackling to life, Jax's voice echoing through the corridors. Team meeting, folks. Let's regroup and strategize before we dive headfirst into another mess. Ryder and Lyra exchanged a glance, the unspoken understanding clear between them. They were in deep, and the stakes were climbing faster than a rocket on launch day. But they weren't out of tricks yet. As they made their way to the meeting room, Ryder couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm. Maybe it was the absurdity of their situation, or perhaps the realization that in the grand scheme of things, they were just a blip in the universe's chaotic dance. Whatever it was, it made the whole scenario a little easier to swallow. Jax was already at the head of the table when they arrived, his usual charismatic air firmly in place, despite the tightrope they were walking. The rest of the crew shuffled in, a motley collection of cynics, skeptics, and occasional optimists, a ragtag family bound by the shared madness of their lives. All right, listen up, Jax began, his voice carrying the weight of the moment. We've got a new plan, and I promise it's slightly less likely to get us killed than the last one. Setting the bar nice and low, I see, Ryder quipped, earning a few snorts of laughter. Exactly, Jax replied, unfazed. Here's the deal, we've got an alien device that can screw with human emotions. Problematic, but also our ace in the hole if we play it right. And how do you suggest we do that without it blowing up in our faces? One of the crew members, a grizzled navigator named Thorn, asked. Lyra took the floor, her confidence shining through. We've been working on a way to reverse the signal, turn their weapon into a boomerang, mess with their heads instead of yours. Thorn looked skeptical. And that's supposed to help us. How? Ryder leaned forward, his gaze steady. Think about it. If they're too busy trying to figure out which way's up, they won't be able to stop us from getting what we need. And what exactly do we need? Thorn pressed, his voice laced with doubt. Jax grinned, that familiar glint of mischief in his eyes. Their ship, for starters. Or at least the parts that'll fetch us a nice payday. The room buzzed with a mix of apprehension and excitement, the crew's mood shifting as the plan took shape. All right, Ryder said, standing. Let's get to work. We've got an alien ship to confuse and some gutsy moves to pull off. As the crew broke off to their respective tasks, Ryder caught Lyra's eye. Think we can really pull this off? she shrugged, a playful smile quirking her lips. "We've done crazier things. Besides, what's the worst that could happen?" Ryder laughed, feeling the tension ebb away. "I love how you always see the bright side. It's easier than dwelling on the fact we're probably all going to die," she replied, her tone light. With their spirits lifted, Ryder and Lyra set to work on the device, their fingers flying over the controls as they prepared to turn the tables on their alien adversaries. It was a long shot, but in their line of work, long shots were just another day on the job. Hours passed in a flurry of technical jargon, fried circuits, and a few choice expletives thrown in for good measure. Ryder felt the familiar pull of exhaustion tugging at him, but it was a welcome companion, a reminder that they were still in the game. Finally, with a flourish of keystrokes, Lyra let out a triumphant whoop. "It's done!" Ryder leaned back, surveying their handiwork. "And you're sure it'll work?" "As sure as I can be, which isn't saying much," Lyra admitted. "But I've got a good feeling about it." "Well, here's hoping your feeling's better than the last time you predicted the results of a poker game." "Hey, I was only off by a few thousand credits," she protested, grinning. Ryder chuckled, shaking his head. "Let's just hope the aliens have as much luck as you do." With their preparations complete, the crew gathered once more, the weight of their task hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Jax addressed them with a confident nod, his voice steady and sure. "All right, folks. This is it. We're betting big and aiming high. Let's show these aliens what humans are made of." Ryder felt a surge of determination, the thrill of the challenge coursing through him. Despite the odds, despite the uncertainty, there was a part of him that knew they could pull this off. As they took their positions and prepared to face the unknown, Ryder couldn't help but feel a sense of unity with his crew, a band of misfits and outcasts who'd somehow become his family. They were flawed, stubborn, and occasionally insane, but they were his, and he wouldn't trade them for anything. "Ready?" Lyra asked, her hand hovering over the control that would send their modified signal out into the cosmos. Ryder nodded, a fierce grin on his face. "Ready as I'll ever be." With a shared glance of determination, they activated the device, sending their challenge hurtling toward the alien ship. It was a gamble, a leap of faith into the unknown, but as the signal soared through the void, Ryder knew one thing for certain. They might be outmatched, outgunned, and out of their minds, but they were far from beaten. They were human, damn it, and in the end, that was their greatest weapon of all. The Venture's haven was a little like a cantankerous old man, grumbling through space with a hull that complained at every turn and engines that wheezed like asthmatic dogs. Today, though, it sounded like it was in the throes of a particularly violent coughing fit. The ship had seen better days, but then again, so had all of them. Captain Jack's Vortex lay sprawled across the floor of the bridge, a gash on his forehead, and an expression that suggested he'd just found out the universe's punchline was at his expense. Ryder Quill stood over him, one foot gingerly nudging the captain's shoulder. "Hey, Jax, you gonna get up, or are we adding deck decoration to your list of duties?" Ryder asked, voice laced with the kind of sarcasm that came naturally when you lived a life of impending doom. Jax groaned, not in pain, but in the universal language of "leave me the hell alone." "Give me a minute, Quill. I think I just had a chat with Death, and he's a terrible conversationalist." Lyra Sign, usually the pragmatist in their ensemble of lunatics, was busy trying to wrestle some semblance of order back into the ship's systems. The alien device had decided to throw a party and invited chaos as the guest of honor. The console in front of her was lighting up like a Christmas tree that someone had thoughtfully set on fire. "Ryder, if you could stop poking our esteemed leader and maybe help me stop this ship from exploding, that'd be super," Lyra snapped, fingers dancing over the keys. Ryder smirked. "I thought you liked a bit of excitement in your day, Lyra. What, the impending death isn't thrilling enough for you? Funny, Quill. I'll be sure to mention your comedic talents in your eulogy," she shot back, her sarcasm razor sharp. With a resigned sigh, Ryder stepped away from Jax, who was slowly beginning to resemble a human again. He moved to Lyra's side, peering over her shoulder at the mess of data streaming across the screen. It looked like a digital Jackson Pollock, if Pollock had been a sadistic AI with a penchant for screwing with human heads. "So, what's our status?" Ryder asked, trying to sound competent and not as terrified as he felt. The ship shuddered beneath them, another ominous groan echoing through the corridors. "Awful, thanks for asking," Lyra replied, her tone flat. "The alien tech is doing its best to make us all crap our pants, and I'm one short circuit away from joining Jax on the floor." "So yeah, pretty standard day." Ryder ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "We have any idea how to stop it, or are we just going to wing it like usual?" Lyra paused, her hands stilling for a moment. "Honestly, winging it seems to be our best bet, unless you happen to have an anti-alien device hidden up your sleeve." Ryder snorted. "Nope, fresh out of those." But hey, at least we're consistent. Their gallows humor was interrupted by a series of loud pops and a flash of sparks from the corner of the room. Ryder instinctively ducked, shooting Lyra a wide-eyed look. "Please tell me that was supposed to happen." She shook her head, a wry smile on her lips. "Not unless you programmed explode dramatically into the ship's routine maintenance." The intercom crackled to life, Jax's voice weak but present. "Team, report." "We're alive," Ryder replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "The ship's a little unhappy, but we're working on it." "Good," Jax said, and Ryder could almost see the thin smile stretching across his captain's face. "Keep it that way." "I'm not ready to meet my maker just yet. Figured you'd want to give him a piece of your mind first," Ryder quipped, earning a snort from Lyra. Jax's laughter was a rasping sound, but it was there. "Damn right. Now, let's get this mess sorted before the aliens decide to see if they can make us dance to their tune permanently." Lyra returned her focus to the console, her frustration palpable. "Ryder, I need you to reroute the power from the auxiliary systems. Maybe we can trick the alien device into thinking we're just another piece of junk floating through space." Ryder nodded, grateful for the distraction. "On it. Maybe it'll take pity on us and decide we're too pathetic to bother with." As he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding that clung to him like a second skin. The alien technology wasn't just screwing with their ship, it was messing with their heads too. Fear and confusion were creeping in at the edges, threatening to unravel the thin thread of sanity they were all clinging to. "Hey, Lyra," Ryder said, his voice softer, more serious. "You sure we're not in over our heads with this one?" She paused, her gaze meeting his, a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "Honestly, I'm not sure of anything right now, but we've been in tight spots before and we've always managed to scrape by." Ryder offered her a half-smile. "Scraping by is kind of our thing, isn't it?" "It's either that or spectacular failure," she replied, her tone lightening. "And I'd rather not go out in a blaze of incompetence." With their banter keeping despair at bay, they returned to the task at hand. The alien technology was like a malignant tumor lodged in the heart of their ship, and it would take every ounce of ingenuity and luck they had to outwit it. Jax, now upright and leaning heavily on the console for support, watched them work with a critical eye. Despite the injury and the chaos, his presence was a steadying one, a reminder that even when the universe seemed hell-bent on screwing them over, they still had each other. "Ryder, Lyra," Jax said, his voice a quiet command. "We didn't come this far just to quit when things get tough. We've got a job to do, and I expect both of you to see it through." Ryder nodded, feeling the resolve settle in his chest like a weight. "We're not done yet, Captain. Not by a long shot." Lyra shot Jax a grin, her confidence returning. "Besides, I refuse to let some alien gizmo outsmart me. I have a reputation to uphold." The ship groaned again, a sound that had become all too familiar, but they ignored it, focusing on their work. Ryder could feel the fear creeping in, the alien device subtly amplifying every doubt and insecurity he'd ever felt. But he pushed it down, channeling the anxiety into determination. They were human, after all, and if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was stubbornly refusing to give up in the face of insurmountable odds. It was a trait that had gotten them this far and would see them through, come hell or high water. "Okay, here goes nothing," Ryder muttered, making the final adjustments to the power grid. "Let's see if we can trick this thing into leaving us alone." Lyra crossed her fingers, casting a hopeful glance at the readout screen. "If this works, drinks are on me when we get back. If not, well, at least we won't have to worry about hangovers." They activated the system, holding their breath as the ship seemed to shudder, then went eerily silent. The alien device blinked, as if considering their pitiful attempt at survival, and for a moment, Ryder thought they might actually have pulled it off. But the calm was short-lived. The device's glow intensified, and Ryder felt a sudden rush of emotions crashing over him like a tidal wave. Fear, doubt, anger all amplified to the point of madness. "Ryder," Lyra shouted, her voice barely cutting through the noise in his head. "Stay with me." He clung to her voice like a lifeline, focusing on the familiarity and warmth it represented. Slowly, the storm of emotions receded, leaving him shaken but standing. "What the hell was that?" he gasped, rubbing a hand across his face as if to wipe away the remnants of the experience. Jax, having witnessed the exchange, shook his head grimly. "The device is fighting back. It knows we're trying to shut it down, and it's not going down without a fight." "So what do we do?" Ryder asked, the desperation creeping into his voice despite his best efforts to keep it at bay. "We keep fighting," Lyra answered, her voice steady and sure. "We keep trying until we find a way to beat it." Jax nodded in agreement, his expression resolved. "We didn't sign up for easy, folks. We signed up to survive, and that's exactly what we're going to do." Ryder took a deep breath, feeling the resolve solidifying within him. They might be facing impossible odds, but they weren't alone. They had each other, and that was a force even alien technology couldn't account for. "All right," he said, looking between Jax and Lyra. "Let's do this. One way or another, we're not going down without a fight." As they resumed their efforts, the ship around them groaned and creaked, a testament to the battle raging within its metal bones. Ryder couldn't help but think that, in some twisted way, the Venture's haven was as much a part of their ragtag family as any of them. It had carried them through countless scrapes and close calls, and it wasn't about to give up on them now. With a final shared glance of determination, they set to work, knowing that whatever happened next, they would face it together. They might be outmatched and outgunned, but they were still in the fight. And as long as they drew breath, they would keep fighting, because that's what being human meant. Stubborn, defiant, and maybe a little bit insane, but never defeated. Not as long as they had each other and the will to keep going against all odds. Ryder stared at the console, the flickering lights casting weird shadows across his face. His mind was a chaotic whirlwind of fear and anger, but somewhere in that mess, a spark of an idea was trying to ignite. "We can't outgun this thing," he said, voice low, almost as if he was talking to himself. "But maybe we can outwit it." Lyra shot him a skeptical look, her brow arching in that way that suggested she was about to tear apart whatever half-baked plan he was about to propose. "Please tell me you've got more than blind optimism and caffeine fueling that brainwave." Jax leaned in, curious, or maybe just desperate enough to entertain any idea, no matter how insane. "What are you thinking, Ryder?" Ryder sucked in a breath. Now came the hard part, trying to articulate the half-formed thoughts tangling in his head like a bad haircut. "The alien tech is messing with our minds, right? Amping up all the worst parts, making us panic. But what if we could turn that against it?" Lyra frowned, tapping her chin in thought. "How? It's not like we can give it a taste of its own medicine. We don't have the tech to mess with its circuits." "Yeah, but we have something it doesn't," Ryder said, his grin spreading. "Unpredictability. Emotions. We're a mess, a swirling chaos of feelings that even the most advanced alien tech would struggle to quantify. We can use that." Jax's eyes narrowed, a calculating glint within them. "You're thinking we use our unpredictability as a weapon? Throw it off balance." Ryder nodded, feeling a thrill of excitement coil in his stomach. "Exactly. If we can flood the system with enough emotional noise, maybe we can confuse it long enough to break free. Lyra gave a short, incredulous laugh. So, let me get this straight. We're going to give it a human existential crisis. Pretty much, Ryder replied, unable to keep the grin off his face. We've been driving each other insane for years. Let's see if we can do it to the alien tech. Jax chuckled, the sound more a rusty grate than anything mirthful, but it was enough to bolster Ryder's confidence. Hell, it's worth a shot. What do we have to lose? Besides our minds, that is. With a plan forming, Ryder dove into the ship's communication systems, fingers flying across the keys with a frantic energy born of desperation and determination. Okay, I'll rig the intercom to blast random emotional triggers. Songs, speeches, anything that might throw it for a loop. Lyra nodded, catching on quickly. And I'll make sure the feedback loop keeps it from adapting too fast. We need to hit it hard and fast. As they worked, Jax leaned back, watching the two of them with a kind of resigned amusement. A ship full of emotional humans. Who'd have thought that was the secret weapon all along? Ryder snorted, not looking up from his task. Yeah, next thing you know, we'll be weaponizing soap opera plot lines. With a few final keystrokes, Ryder set the chaotic plan into motion. Here goes nothing. Let's see if we can overload this thing with the raw power of human insanity. The ship's intercom crackled, sputtering for a moment before an old Earth pop song blared through the corridors, the kind of annoyingly catchy tune that stuck in your head for days and drove you mad in the process. What the hell is that? Jax asked, wincing at the sound. Something that should be illegal in 12 systems, Ryder replied, grinning. But it's perfect for what we need. The alien device flickered, its lights flickering like a disco ball with stage fright. It was working, at least a little. The chaotic noise of human emotion was throwing it off balance. Lyra added a few more emotional triggers to the mix, an impassioned political rant, a tear-jerking love ballad, a children's cartoon theme song. The ship felt like it was one step away from hosting the universe's weirdest party. Jax shook his head, shouting over the din. If this works, Ryder, I swear I'll never complain about your taste in music again. The alien device blinked erratically, its controls slipping as it struggled to process the onslaught of human emotions. Ryder watched, hope flaring as the lights on the console began to stutter and die. We're getting through, Lyra yelled, her fingers dancing over the controls to maintain the pressure. Keep it up, the ship shook, a deep, resonant groan echoing through its hull like the universe's worst soundtrack, but Ryder didn't care. They were doing it. They were actually doing it. The chaos of sound and emotion was reaching a fever pitch, blurring into a cacophony that Ryder was sure would haunt his dreams forever. But it was working. The alien tech was on the ropes, struggling to maintain its grip on their systems. Just a little more, Ryder urged, his voice hoarse with effort and hope. Come on, you damn piece of alien scrap, let go. With one final, defiant pulse, the alien device flickered, then went dark, its hold over the ship finally broken. The silence that followed was almost deafening, a tangible relief that washed over them all like a wave. Jax let out a whoop of triumph, slapping Ryder on the back with enough force to nearly knock him off his feet. Hell of a job, kid. I didn't think you had it in you. Lyra leaned back in her chair, exhaustion etched into every line of her body, but a grin stretched across her face. Ryder Quill, I could kiss you. Ryder chuckled, rubbing a hand over his face. I'll take a rain check on that. Just surviving this mess is reward enough. Jax shook his head, still grinning like a madman. We did it. We actually did it. I'd have bet my last credit we were goners this time. Never underestimate the human capacity for chaos, Ryder said, looking around at the crew, his friends, feeling a deep sense of camaraderie and pride swell within him. We might be a mess, but damn if we're not resilient. The sense of victory was short-lived, however, as the ship gave another ominous shudder, the engines wheezing like a smoker getting up a steep hill. Guess we're not out of the woods yet, Lyra remarked wryly, though the tension had lessened considerably. Jax nodded, his expression turning serious once more. No, but we've got a fighting chance now. We've survived worse and we'll survive this. Ryder sat back, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away, leaving him feeling wrung out but strangely at peace. They'd won a small victory, one that might just be enough to see them through. "All right," Jax said, clapping his hands together. "Let's get this rust bucket back on track. We've got a heist to pull off, and I'm not letting a little thing like alien tech scare us off." Lyra chuckled, rolling her shoulders to work out the tension. "Right. Back to our regularly scheduled programming of questionable legality and bad life choices." Ryder gave a tired grin, feeling that familiar spark of reckless adventure reignite within him. Wouldn't have it any other way. As they set to work, the Venture's haven groaning and creaking around them like an old beast of burden, Ryder couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of purpose. They'd faced down the worst the universe could throw at them and come out the other side, battered but unbroken. Maybe they were a ragtag bunch of misfits and renegades, but they were more than that. They were family, bound together by the shared madness of their lives and the undeniable truth that they'd always have each other's backs, no matter what. And that, Ryder thought, was a power even alien technology couldn't hope to understand. It was the human spirit, raw and unfiltered, and it was their greatest weapon. "All right, crew," Jax called, his voice carrying a note of command that was impossible to ignore. "Let's show the universe what makes us the best damn crew this side of the galaxy. Let's make history." With a renewed sense of determination, Ryder and the others set to work, ready to face whatever came next with the same stubborn defiance that had carried them this far. They were down, but not out, not by a long shot. And as long as they had each other and the will to keep fighting, there wasn't a damn thing in the universe that could stop them. The Venture's haven had seen better days, assuming it ever had any to begin with. The ship groaned like a disgruntled old man forced out of bed at dawn, and the crew wasn't in much better shape. "Well, that was a hell of a show," Jax said, rubbing the back of his neck. He looked like he'd been through a car wash on a dare, but there was a dangerous spark of mischief in his eyes. "Now let's see if we can do it again with feeling." Ryder quill riffled through the control panel mess, cables dangling like a bad hair day. "No pressure, right," he said, his voice dry enough to desiccate a desert. He shot a sideways glance at Lyra Sign, who was busy frowning at a console like it had personally offended her. "You think you can sweet-talk this bucket of bolts into one last ride?" Lyra smirked, tapping a few keys with the grace of someone who had clearly spent too much time in love-hate relationships with malfunctioning tech. "Come on, Haven, be a dear and don't explode on us, yeah?" The ship responded with a low rumble, more threatening rumble than happy purr, but Ryder chose to take it as a positive sign. "Sounds like she's in a mood. We should get moving before she changes her mind." Jax surveyed his ragtag crew, his smile more wolfish than reassuring. "Right, let's get this heist done before we end up as cosmic confetti." As Lyra set the coordinates, Ryder sidled over to Captain Jax. "So, boss, any chance you've got a real plan? Or are we just winging it in the grand tradition of half-baked schemes?" Jax shrugged, embodying the very essence of fake it till you make it. "Let's just say it's a plan with room for creativity." And by creativity, I mean sheer dumb luck. The alien tech still sat ominously in the corner, its lights flickering like a malfunctioning Christmas display. A not-so-subtle reminder that they weren't quite out of the frying pan yet. "Ryder, keep an eye on that thing," Jax said, nodding towards the alien device. "If it so much as flickers the wrong way, I want to know." "Sure thing, Cap," Ryder replied, giving it a wary look. "Nothing like having a loaded gun in the room to keep you on your toes." They strapped in as Lyra finished the preparations, her fingers flying over the controls. "All right, kids, hold onto your lunch. This might get bumpy." With a lurch that was more roller coaster than spaceship, Venture's Haven leapt forward, engines protesting like kids dragged to school on a rainy Monday. As they sped through the blackness of space, Ryder's mind drifted back to their little victory over the alien tech. "You know," he mused, "if any of this gets out, we'll be legends." Or the punchline to a really bad joke. Lyra snorted, flicking a switch with exaggerated care. "Probably both. The crew who saved themselves with bad music has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Assuming we live to tell the tale," Ryder added, his grin a mix of mirth and madness. "Not much point in being a legend if we're all space dust." The ship's intercom crackled, and Jax's voice came through, laced with the kind of authority that made you want to salute and then punch him all at once. "All right, folks, we're coming up on the convoy ship. Get ready for the fun part." Ryder peered out of the viewport, catching sight of their target, a sleek convoy ship, blissfully unaware of the chaos about to descend upon it. "Looks like a nice, juicy prize," he remarked. "Guess they didn't get the memo on locking the doors." Lyra snorted. "You'd think with all the tech they've got, they'd invest in a decent security system. But no, let's leave the back door wide open." Jax cut in, the intercom buzzing with his characteristic bravado. "All right, team, this is it. Remember, we're the good guys, relatively speaking. Let's keep the collateral damage to a minimum, yeah?" "Good guys," Ryder muttered under his breath, eyes fixed on the task at hand. "Says the man leading a heist." Lyra shot him a look. "If it helps, think of it as a creative redistribution of resources." Their approach was smooth enough, if you ignored the rattling hull and the ominous creaks of the ship. Ryder slipped into position by the airlock, tools in hand and mind racing. "Ready to breach?" Lyra nodded, slipping a device onto the locking mechanism. "Just about. Give it a minute and we'll be in." The indicator light blinked from red to green, and with a hiss the airlock opened, revealing the innards of the convoy ship like a gaping maw. "And we're in," Lyra said, sounding almost cheerful. "Let's grab what we came for and get out." Inside, the convoy ship was everything Venture's haven wasn't: clean, orderly, and devoid of the smell of something burning. Ryder felt a pang of envy mixed with the thrill of impending chaos. "Nice place," he commented, stepping through the airlock. "Shame if someone were to, I don't know, rob it." They moved swiftly, Lyra leading the way with the confidence of someone who'd done this far too many times. "All right, we've got about 10 minutes before they realize we're here," she said, glancing back at Ryder. "Think you can pull off your magic trick by then?" Ryder nodded, his fingers already flying over a nearby console, overriding security protocols with the deftness of a concert pianist. "Piece of cake," he replied, though the sweat on his brow suggested otherwise. Jax's voice crackled in their earpieces, a constant reminder of their ticking clock. 5 minutes, people. Let's not overstay our welcome." Lyra and Ryder exchanged a quick nod before separating, Lyra heading towards the cargo hold while Ryder continued to work his magic on the system. He shut down alarms, rerouted power, and made sure their presence remained a whisper in the system's ears. He was almost done when the console flickered ominously, a sharp pang of déjà vu hitting him like a punch to the gut. Guys," he said, his voice tight with the kind of worry that you didn't want to hear from your tech guy. "We might have company, and by company I mean alien interference." Lyra's voice came back, laced with the kind of exasperation that suggested she'd expected this all along. "Just once, I'd like to execute a plan without the universe trying to kill us." The alien device aboard Venture's haven was stirring, its lights flickering back to life like a horror movie monster refusing to stay down. Ryder could almost hear the sinister music playing in his head as he glanced back towards where it lay. Jax chimed in, a little too calm for the situation. "Ryder, Lyra, get your asses back here, we're pulling out. Now." Ryder finished his work on the console with a flourish, slamming the final command into the system. "On my way," he said, spinning on his heel and sprinting back towards the airlock. Lyra was already there, a crate of what might be valuable cargo at her feet. "Ready?" she asked, hefting the crate with surprising ease. "As I'll ever be," Ryder replied, giving the empty corridor one last look. "Hope they enjoy the migraines." Back on Venture's haven, The mood was tense but determined. Jax was already at the helm, guiding their battered ship away from the convoy with the kind of precision that would have made a surgeon envious. "Hold on, everyone. We're not out of the woods yet." The alien device was still a problem, its unsettling glow casting eerie shadows in the dim light of the ship's interior. Ryder spared it a wary glance, half expecting it to start spitting sparks or chanting in alien tongues. "We need to disable that thing for good," Jax said, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. "Ideas." Lyra frowned at the device, her mind clearly working overtime. "Maybe we can use its own power against it. Give it a feedback loop it can't handle." Ryder perked up, his mind racing with the possibilities. "Like overloading it with the same emotional noise. Double down on the crazy." "Exactly," Lyra said, the hint of a smile playing on her lips. "We hit it with everything we've got." Ryder set to work, his fingers dancing over the console as he prepared to unleash another wave of human chaos. "If this goes sideways," he said, grinning despite himself, "it's been nice knowing you all." The ship's intercom blared to life once more, this time with an even more eclectic mix of emotional triggers. Old Earth classics mixed with alien pop, stirring speeches with nonsensical babble. It was an assault on the senses that Ryder was sure would haunt him in his sleep. The alien device flickered and hummed, struggling to process the barrage of stimuli. Its lights danced erratically, casting strobe-like patterns across the walls. "Come on," Ryder muttered, his eyes fixed on the device. "Just a little more." Lyra joined in the effort, tweaking the feedback loop with the kind of intensity usually reserved for bomb defusal. Together, they poured every ounce of chaotic energy they could muster into the device, pushing it to its limits. The ship shuddered, as if caught in the throes of a cosmic convulsion. Ryder held his breath, waiting for the inevitable explosion that would spell their doom or salvation. Finally, with a sound that was equal parts whine and pop, the alien device gave one last shudder and went dark, its lights extinguished like a candle in the wind. The silence that followed was almost mocking in its serenity, a calm after the storm that left the crew momentarily stunned. Jax broke the spell, his voice laced with relief and something akin to pride. "We did it. Damn, we actually did it." Ryder slumped back against the wall, his heart pounding with a mixture of disbelief and triumph. "We're still alive," he said, more to convince himself than anyone else. "And we've got a cargo hold full of loot to prove it." Lyra shook her head, her smile tired but genuine. "I'd say we earned ourselves a drink." Jax grinned, steering Venture's Haven away from the convoy ship and towards the vast expanse of stars ahead. "Let's get the hell out of here, then," he said, his voice rich with the promise of more adventures to come. "We've got a galaxy to explore and a reputation to build." As they left the convoy ship behind, Ryder couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of purpose. They'd faced down alien tech and come out on top, not because they were the smartest or the strongest, but because they were human, gloriously, chaotically human. And as long as they had that, there wasn't a damn thing in the universe that could stop them. With a guttural groan that would make a death rattle sound like a choir of angels, Venture's Haven limped its way through the void. The crew, tired but victorious, gathered in the common area. The ship was still a mess of flickering lights and ominously sparking wires, but at least it wasn't about to explode. Probably. Ryder leaned against the wall, rubbing his temples. "You know, if I had a credit for every time this ship almost killed us, I could buy something nice. Like a coffin that fits." Lyra, perched on the edge of a crate they'd filched from the convoy, rolled her eyes. "I'd get a new ship, one that doesn't sound like it hates us with every creak and groan." Captain Jax Vortex, sprawled in the captain's chair with an ice pack on his forehead, chuckled. "Where's the fun in that? This ship's like a bad marriage. You hate it most of the time, but it sure makes life interesting." "Interesting is one word for it," Lyra muttered, inspecting the crate's contents. She pulled out an alien artifact, glistening with an ethereal glow that practically screamed bad idea. "Think this thing is worth enough to keep us flying for a while?" Ryder glanced at it, then at the ship's flickering lights. Depends. What's the going rate for a strange doodad that might or might not explode? Jax grinned, his charm as intact as the ship's hull wasn't. Enough for fuel and a few rounds of drinks at least. We can worry about the exploding part later. Story of our lives, Ryder said, rubbing at the grime on his hands that he knew would never fully wash off. Fix first, ask questions never. They'd made it through the latest bout of chaos by the skin of their teeth, and that was saying something on a ship held together by duct tape and a collective refusal to die. But the mood was lighter, a testament to the resilience that kept them alive. Ryder found himself reflecting on what had brought them to this point. It wasn't just the stolen goods or the thrill of the heist. It was something deeper, something that even the alien tech couldn't touch, the indomitable spirit of humanity, the sheer bloody-mindedness to keep going no matter the odds. All this, Ryder gestured broadly at the ship, the stars, and the scrapes they'd gotten into, ever make you think we might be slightly insane? Lyra chuckled, a sound as dry as the vacuum outside. Slightly, Ryder, we're beyond insane. We're legends. Or a cautionary tale, Jax added, his grin widening. Depends on who survives to tell it. As they settled back into the routine of repairing the battered ship, the crew found their banter a welcome balm for bruised spirits. Ryder, elbows deep in tangled wiring, found it oddly comforting. Sure, they were a ragtag bunch flying a death trap through hostile space, but they were his ragtag bunch. Think we'll ever catch a break? Ryder asked, half joking. Lyra shot him a look over a dismantled console. And ruin the fun, where's your sense of adventure? Jack smirked, watching them with a paternal air that was about as earnest as a used starship salesman. If we ever catch a break, I'll eat my hat. And that's assuming we can afford a hat. The ship creaked ominously in agreement, as if to say that leisure was for the weak and the sane. But underneath the quips and the cynicism, Ryder felt an undeniable warmth. In the midst of the chaos, he'd found something that you'd never see advertised on a recruitment poster: family. So what's next, Captain? Ryder asked, wiping his hands on his already stained shirt. Jax pondered for a moment, the twinkle in his eye betraying a mind already scheming the next impossible escapade. First, we patch up this tub. Then we find somewhere to pawn off these goodies. After that, who knows? The galaxy's full of people who need stuff they can't get. And people like us who are all too willing to get it for them, Lyra added with a grin. Exactly, Jax said, leaning back with the air of a man who'd somehow managed to win at a game everyone else thought was unwinnable. Trouble's just another day at the office, remember? Ryder nodded, his smile a mix of camaraderie and resignation. Potential death and no dental. The perks we live for. As they continued their work, Ryder couldn't shake the feeling that despite the chaos, despite the bruises and the constant threat of annihilation, he wouldn't trade this life for anything. There was a thrill in the uncertainty, a rush in the risk, and a deep-seated satisfaction in knowing they'd face down the universe and come out laughing. The ship slowly began to resemble something less like a potential death trap and more like a home, albeit one that occasionally tried to kill them. Ryder clung to that thought, finding solace in the shared glances and the easy banter, the unspoken understanding that they were all in this together. "Hey, Lyra," Ryder called, looking up from his work. "Think we've got another adventure left in us?" Lyra paused, her face half hidden by wires and circuits, and gave him a look that spoke volumes. "We've got more than just one. The universe hasn't seen the last of us." Jax chimed in, his voice full of that reckless optimism that somehow kept them all going. "And if it has, it'll wish it hadn't." With the repairs underway and spirits tentatively high, the crew of Venture's Haven prepared to face whatever the stars had in store for them. They had their ship, they had each other, and they had the reckless courage that only comes from knowing you've beaten the odds once, so why not again? As the ship hummed with renewed energy, Ryder allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. They'd made it through not because they had all the answers or the best technology, but because they had the one thing that mattered, each other. And as long as they had that, there was nothing the universe could throw at them that they couldn't handle. To the next adventure, Ryder said, raising an imaginary glass. To surviving the next adventure, Lyra corrected, her smile a flash of defiance against the darkness. Jax nodded, his expression one of unyielding confidence. And to making sure the universe never forgets the name Venture's Haven. With that, they returned to their work, laughter and camaraderie echoing through the hull like a promise of better things to come. And out there, beyond the flickering lights and the worn-out panels, the stars beckoned, a testament to the unending possibilities of a life lived on the edge. Ryder took a deep breath, savoring the moment. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and for now, that was enough. They'd face whatever came next with the same irreverent courage they'd faced everything before, together, with a middle finger raised defiantly at the universe. It was, after all, the only way they knew how to live.